Hi, this is Aaron Newcomb filling in for Randall Schwartz on FLOSS Weekly. This week, Dan Lynch joins me to talk about MediaFront, the open source media solution for streaming and playing video over the web. That's coming up right now on FLOSS Weekly.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for FLOSS Weekly is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is FLOSS Weekly with Aaron Newcomb and Dan Lynch, episode 172, recorded on June 28, 2011. MediaFront. This episode of FLOSS Weekly is brought to you by Netflix. Watch thousands of TV episodes and movies on your PC, Mac, iPad, iPhone, Android device, or TV instantly. All streamed directly to you, saving time, money, and hassle. For your free 30-day trial, go to netflix.com/twit. All right, welcome to FLOSS Weekly. I'm Aaron Newcomb, sitting in for Randall Schwartz, who is traveling, I believe, down at FISLI, the open source convention that goes on down in Brazil. I think it's probably in Porto Alegre again. I'm not sure, but he is. I've been there and presented there. It's a great conference with thousands of folks. He's down there currently, probably giving his presentation right now. Who knows? Or wrapping up. But anyway, so I'm sitting in for him, and I have with me here today Dan Lynch, who's co-hosting with me. Dan, how's it going?
Hey, it's great, yeah. Randall gets all the tough jobs, doesn't he? Like going to Brazil for a week or whatever.
yeah, he gets to go down there, and although this time of year it's actually kind of cool down there because it's in the opposite half of the world, and so it's actually pretty cool. That surprised me when I went down. I brought one sweater and I ended up wearing it the whole time because it was so cold. But yeah, it's a great show down there. We've got an interesting topic today. Actually, we're going to be talking about MediaFront. Which I didn't know a whole lot about before we lined this thing up, and it's actually very, very interesting project. MediaFront is really all about being a media player inside of Drupal to allow folks that run websites to stream, their media. Instead of using Flash Player, they can use MediaFront. So I think this is going to be really, really interesting to talk to our guest about this today. Dan, what do you think about this MediaFront?
Yeah, it looks really interesting because the amazing thing to me is that even in this day and age, in 2011, we're still not sure exactly how the best way to get video out onto the internet. A lot of us aren't, anyway. So I think this could really help with that. And obviously, Drupal is a big area of interest. I haven't tried it, so I can't wait to hear more about MediaFront and how they make it easy for everyone.
Right. Well, I know we're both going to have a lot. This is something that both of us are involved in various ways. So I want to get right to our guest. But before I do, we've got a very interesting offer for our listeners, and it comes from Netflix. Netflix actually streams thousands of TV episodes and movies directly to you instantly, which means you save time and hassle. No more video stores, no more late fees, things like that. And there's actually several easy ways to access Netflix. Of course, if you haven't heard, obviously you can watch Netflix right on your PC or Mac. You can also watch on your phone. So I know iPhone supports Netflix, and my Android device that I have, my Nexus 1, actually supports Netflix as well, and the quality is great. So you can also watch via your gaming console, Nintendo or Xbox. You can do it that way. If you don't play games, you can actually watch Netflix right on your TV with either Apple TV or a Roku box, which makes it very inexpensive. Maybe your TV or Blu-ray player supports Netflix. I know my Blu-ray player does. So you can watch that way. You can watch thousands of TV shows instantly using any of those devices, and you can begin watching movies or shows on one device and then finish on a different one. You can pause, you can back out, and you go watch, maybe the next day if you fall asleep like I do most of the time, you can do that. But whatever way you choose to watch Netflix, it's okay. You can watch as many movies and TV shows as you want anytime that you want, and you can actually cancel anytime. So when you log in, you're really only paying for a monthly subscription fee, and whenever you want to drop out, you just let that lapse and you're done. So it's really kind of nice. So try Netflix today, and you can try it for 30 days free just by going to netflix.com/twit. So be sure to use that URL when you sign up for your free trial. If you haven't done it yet, go talk to your mom, to your grandmothers, people that maybe haven't tried it yet, and make sure that they go to netflix.com/twit, and we thank Netflix for their support of Twit and Floss Weekly, and we hope you enjoy watching instantly with Netflix. All right, so now let's bring on our guest, Travis Tidwell. Did I say that right, Travis?
Tidwell, yes.
Tidwell. Thank you for correcting me. Now, Travis, where are you calling us from?
I'm actually calling from Las Colinas, Texas, which is a suburb of Dallas, Texas. We lovingly call this place Silicon Prairie.
So there's a lot of internet and technology companies there.
Yeah, that's correct. We have a lot of technology-based companies here in the Dallas area. I work for a startup company called allplayers.com. We do group management software, trying to make the lives easier for coaches, parents, for recreational sports. And so that's actually the company that I work for. But yeah, you have a lot of startup companies in this area, and it's actually a great place to live.
Okay. And how does that tie in with what we're going to talk about now, which is MediaFront, or does it tie in at all?
I think it actually does. You know, because I work for an internet or a web company, you know, internet video or multimedia streaming is actually a huge part of just about any company who wants to have any type of web presence. And so what we're actually going to talk about is, you know, offering solutions to people who actually want to implement web video and want to distribute that video to people throughout the world. So yeah, actually, I think it definitely applies.
Okay. Well, go ahead. Let's jump right into that now. Let's give us the you know, 1,000-foot view here. You know, what is MediaFront? What is it? What is at the heart of MediaFront? How do you describe it to people? What's the elevator pitch?
The best way that I can describe it is actually to kind of go over the use case that I feel it solves. So let's just take a little hypothetical situation. Let's just imagine that you guys belong to a web publishing company, and you guys have like these videos that go out to people and they watch it live. I mean, this is all hypothetical, of course, right? So let's say that's what you're interested in. You're interested in actually publishing internet content in the form of video or maybe even audio. Well, if you're one of those people, you actually have two things that you really have to worry about. The first thing is the back-end management of your media on your website. As of right now, this is actually a really hard problem to solve. So if you have even you know, entry-level people trying to just get into having web video on the internet, they have to really worry about how do they manage that content within the back end of their site. But then on the flip side of that, you also have to worry about presenting that media to your users. And this is actually a really complicated issue, and it's actually been a complicated issue for a really long time just because of the inconsistencies that are involved whenever you're trying to display web video to your users, just because of how the standard is laid out and how the different browsers implement it completely different than other browsers. So those are two things that you have to worry about. What MediaFront actually tries to do is tries to bring those two pieces together. It offers two different solutions, one on the front end and then one on the back end, that allows you to not only provide a consistent user interface to your users from the front end, but also it tries to tap into a very, very powerful content management system called Drupal. I'm sure you guys are very familiar with Drupal CMS. But what this allows you to do is it allows you to manage your videos on the back end, but then also in a very streamlined process present your users those videos with a very common user interface that is displayed the same in almost all browsers.
Right. So now, so that's a great explanation because it leads me to a whole lot of other questions. Right. So
yeah.
So now let's get in a little bit deeper here. So if you go to MediaFront.org and if you're watching this either on the stream or after the fact, you know, we're kind of showing MediaFront.org to give people an idea of what the player looks like. How does the first question, I guess, and maybe you get this one quite often, how does this differentiate itself from doing a Flash-based media player, for example? I mean, what are the differences here?
Well, actually, you know, I'm sure a lot of the listeners of this program are actually familiar with the movement called HTML5. And what actually HTML5 is meant to do is create an open standard way of offering web video on your website. So before we actually had HTML5, we had to use these third-party libraries like Adobe Flash, or even before that we had to use QuickTime or maybe even just built-in browser capabilities of video. And so this was actually kind of a painful thing for the users because they had to install a third-party plugin just to view video. And so with the emergence of HTML5, we actually get the ability to play video and audio streaming standard through your website. The only problem is we can't guarantee that every person out there is upgraded their browsers to the latest version. So I would say that the big difference is that this media solution actually it will upgrade to the HTML5 if your browser supports it. But if it doesn't, it actually has a very elegant fallback to Flash automatically in the back end where it will try its best to play that video even through a third-party plugin like Flash.
So if I'm using an old version of Firefox or you know another browser that doesn't support HTML5, there's a failback. It's not like my videos aren't going to be seen or I'm going to get an error message or a little puzzle piece or something on the screen, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not necessarily fail-proof, and the reason why it isn't fail-proof is just because of the inconsistencies in how browsers implement videos. So a great example of a reason why this wouldn't work is let's say you post OGG videos, so OGG or a codec, which is a completely open standard for video, and you upload your video as an OGG format. Well, that'll actually play fine in Firefox because Firefox can play OGG native, but Flash cannot. So we actually have a really big problem where you still have to know what media types you have to be able that you can put on your website that will be cross-platform available. So not only does this solution allow you the ability to upload one video, and all of this is built into the backend of Drupal. It also allows you the ability to upload multiple versions of the same video formatted differently. So that way you are guaranteed that every user is going to be able to see whatever video content you're trying to publish.
Right. So is there any differences in or advantages, should I say, to this player over the typical Flash deployment, like something I would see on YouTube? I mean, are all the controls the same? Can I do full screen? Can I choose different resolutions? I mean, we all are kind of familiar with those features on YouTube.
Right.
Is this player the same or different, or how does it compare feature-wise?
I would actually say this player is much, much different, fundamentally different, in that it's instead of being written within Flash, it's actually written within JavaScript. And so the actual player itself and all the controls and everything that's controlling the video runs native without any third-party plugins. And so most people out there have JavaScript enabled, so they don't have a problem with actually parsing and running JavaScript. So this media player differentiates itself in that you are not relying on a third-party plugin. And I have nothing against Adobe Flash. I actually think Adobe is a great company, but I feel that their Flash solution is somewhat of a closed source type thing. Of course, they've open sourced a lot of it, but there are a lot of reasons why they couldn't open source all of it. And so it's really kind of on a freedom perspective. You know, do you want to have the freedom to be able to publish content to not require your users to download this third-party plugin just to view your video?
Right.
I would say that that's the big thing. Now, as far as the controls are concerned, this is kind of a pretty difficult problem to solve as well, because Flash allows you to do certain things that HTML media players don't. Of course, these are being corrected in the updated browsers, but for example, you gave full screen mode. Well, full screen, Flash allows you to basically take over the entire screen. So where you hit the full screen button, and it expands to the entire screen, and you don't actually see anything but the video. Up until very, very recently, whenever browsers are starting to upgrade, all that you can really do is simulate a full screen by actually expanding the video to be what we call full browser mode, which actually just expands so that you can actually see the video within the full browser. So there are some differences with that regard, but for the most part, what I tried to do is create that consistent user interface. And so I think that's actually the key, because if you actually look at how the state of the way video is published, it's very inconsistent. So like the HTML5 standard is actually well-defined, but it's implemented inconsistently. So what I'm really trying to do is wrap up all that inconsistencies in a single solution so that you don't have to worry about the inconsistencies. You can just have a media player that is going to try and pick the best path to deliver your video.
Right. Now I've got a lot of my video. I run on my my other podcast that I do. You know, I use Vimeo, for example, right? And I put the video on Vimeo, and I put it a lot of other places too. But I put it on Vimeo, and then I use their embedded player, right?
Right.
So I guess my question is, you know, I'd love to use something that's open source on the site to do that, right? So that people can have a quick way to view an episode of my podcast. The other problem I have, though, so I'm curious about these two things, right? So what about video that's hosted somewhere else on YouTube or Vimeo? There's probably nothing you can do about that, but
no, actually, I'm very glad you actually brought that up because I feel like that is actually the biggest difference between the open standard media player, which is the media player that I have as my front end presentation layer for MediaFront. The open standard media player actually is intelligent enough to where it uses APIs from third parties. So the Vimeos, so you have Vimeo, you have YouTube. They all provide a JavaScript library that you can actually go and interact with their media player using JavaScript. So this is what's really cool about the media player. So if you actually look at the full media player, you see the playlist on the side, you see the control bar down at the bottom. But what really is playing the media is that little black box there in the middle, and that's the only thing that's really playing the media. Well, what's really intelligent that this player does is, let's say that your browser is capable of displaying HTML5, it will actually slap in an HTML5 video element within that black box. Everything else stays the same. It doesn't change the controls, it doesn't change the playlist, just that black box. So let's say it goes into Flash. Well, instead of loading an entire Flash player even with a control bar, all I do is slap out a completely black box as the Flash player to play the Flash just in that black box region. The same goes for YouTube and Vimeo, and I feel like this is what sets this media player apart from the other HTML5 media players, is that I also tap into other APIs from third parties. So let's say you want to show Vimeo, and you want to display your Vimeo video in a different user interface. So let's say you wanted to change that control bar that shows up on the Vimeo player. How would you do that? Well, you would do that by using this media player, where literally what it does is it pulls out the little black region that shows the video, and it actually loads their API player. And whenever you are hitting the control bars and you're actually seeking through the video, it's using JavaScript callbacks into their API player to actually manipulate and make it do certain stuff. And the same goes for YouTube. So this actually offers anybody who wants to publish video a consistent user interface. So let's say you have videos on YouTube. Let's say you have videos on Vimeo. Let's say you have some local videos that you want to display. The point is what I'm trying to do is wrap up all of those inconsistencies and funnel them through a very single user interface, which is actually great for branding, and it's great for just your website to appeal to a wide audience.
So that's great. So I can provide one consistent view, both for things that are hosted, Vimeo, YouTube, maybe streaming off a third-party site or streaming locally from the server. I can provide a consistent view for all of those things, so it all looks the same.
Yes, that's correct.
Wow.
And that is my whole goal with building this solution, is that I'm really annoyed that the whole video industry on the web is just, it's got to be, even though it's an open standard, it is extremely inconsistent in how it's implemented. Every browser implements it differently. Every browser has a different control bar. Every browser decides they want to support different formats of media. It's like, how in the world, you being a online publisher, how do you decide to confront that? How do you overcome that? And I really feel like it's these open source solutions that actually try to encapsulate that inconsistency is the right way to go.
Huh. That's really cool. I'm really, really excited now to take a look at this because I've been looking for something like this for a while, and I don't know why this hasn't come up. It just hasn't come up on my radar. But number one, I run Drupal. I run my website on Drupal, so that's
so you're covered.
Yeah, exactly. So that's good, right? And then I've been looking for something like this because I put my video out on all kinds of sources. I can't host it locally because I don't have the bandwidth for it. I run the server out of my house, right? So all of my videos hosted somewhere else. So I've been looking for something like this, and I think I've got an episode coming up that I'm working on right now. It's actually been a while. It actually covers well, we'll get into that. We'll get at that at the end of the show. But
Okay.
but I've been looking for a way to do this, so I am super excited to go try this out. I can't wait.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that you're excited. And that's another thing I kind of want to point out is that, you know, the intention, in fact, my very first goal, and it actually ends up being a problem for certain use cases, but my very original goal was to tie the back end and the front end together. And so I really built this media player with Drupal in mind, because I consider myself a Drupal developer at heart. You know, I've been developing with Drupal for well over 5 years. And so that's one thing that I recognized very early on is that Drupal, if you combine Drupal with the front-end presentation layer of media, you have in your hands basically a free open-source GPL media management solution for your web. And that's something that you can't even buy for any reasonable price out there, right? You know, in the commercial market. And all of this is provided for free. I mean, it does take some setup and it does take some reading. But once you actually get everything configured and get it set up, you can find out that within Drupal, you can actually swap out what your player looks like. You can build playlists. Playlist support is another huge thing that this media solution offers. Through using Drupal and content management, Drupal has this amazing module called Views module. Of course, you know Drupal, so you know what Views is.
Right.
But what this is able to do is it will dynamically generate playlists depending on any type of criteria. So let's say you want to set up a website where your users want to view a list of all the videos on your website, but they want to have a favorite playlist. So in their profile, they want to have their own favorites. So they want to say, I want this one, this one, this one. Well, how would you actually develop that if you're going to do it all by scratch? Well, without a content management solution, it's really difficult to do. But with Views, it's incredibly simple. And all you do is slap this media player on their profile page and have the playlist deliver a playlist that's driven by the Views module within Drupal. And you will soon realize how powerful that those tools combined can really become whenever you're wanting to deliver multimedia to your audience.
That is really cool, and we're in danger of becoming like a Drupal love-in because I do Drupal development quite a lot, so,
it's
so
taken
I'm
over
very familiar with Drupal. But some people are asking us in the chat room at the moment, say they haven't got Drupal or they're not using Drupal at the moment, how could they implement this in, say, a standalone HTML site or something like that? Is that possible?
So actually I consider that the number one drawback to MediaFront right now is because I developed it with Drupal in mind and actually developed it within Drupal, I tried my best to take the front end and separate it as much as I can to offer what is called just a standalone media player. And you can actually download this standalone media player. If you actually go to our GitHub account, which is github.com/MediaFront, you can actually view all of our source code online there within our GitHub account. And within that project, you will actually see OSM Player, and what that is the actual standalone version of the front-end presentation. Here's the catch. Because it's extremely complicated in how it works, the standalone version is not user-friendly. And it's only user-friendly if you use the PHP library. So I included like an index.php file that'll actually show you how you can use this if you were delivering it from a PHP server. The only problem is I would not recommend it if you are just setting up just a plain HTML page and you want to slap a media player on your page, because that's just not what it was designed to do. There are other wonderful HTML5 media players out there, like Media Element is a fantastic one. Video.js is another really good one that I would recommend, and that's really what they were designed to do. They are strictly front-end solutions, whereas I consider OSM Player and the MediaFront module within Drupal kind of just like a combination of the back end and the front end combined. So.
Okay, cool. So it serves a different kind of purpose, if you like. It's as you said, it's good that there are other things out there that cover the kind of the static HTML
Right.
field as well. Just quickly, the engineers are telling me we're getting a bit of rustling noise off your microphone, so if you can try and be careful
not move so
to
much.
rub it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's difficult. I know I do that myself. I talk with my hands, unfortunately. So that sounds really cool. And as a kind of guy who's done a fair bit of Drupal stuff, I'm interested to know how easy it is. Is it just the same as installing any other module? I just download it, install it. Do I have to go and get third-party libraries? Like some of these modules you install, it will say, oh, you need to go and get an ID3 tag library and download it.
And that's extremely annoying. And that was my goal with MediaFront. Is I wanted it to be you download the module, you install it, it comes built in with the media player. So the media player actually comes packaged in with the module. So literally I can walk you through the steps of how you can build your own media management solution very simply. You download Drupal, you get it installed, you download the MediaFront module. Of course, I would recommend downloading a module called CCK for Drupal 6. Of course, in Drupal 7, that's out of the box. So if you're doing Drupal 7, don't even worry about CCK. But the one that you are going to want is the Views module, which will actually be able to build your dynamic playlist. But then MediaFront. And what you do is you actually just enable MediaFront. You go into your content type. You set up a couple of file upload fields. And the way that file uploads work in Drupal is actually really cool because you can attach multiple files to a single field. Well, this actually gives you your fallback that I explained earlier, where I was saying, in order that if you really want to show video in HTML5 to all your viewers, you actually have to upload multiple versions of the same file. Well, all you have to do is upload multiple versions in the same file field. And all of this is from a web interface. There's no programming involved here. And once you install MediaFront, you basically get to build your player. And so you go to a section just called MediaFront Presets, where you actually define what you want your media player to look like. Do you want your playlist to be horizontal on the bottom? Do you not want any playlist at all? Do you want your playlist to be on a separate part of the page? There's a number of use cases that this actually takes care of. And you can adjust the size. What do you want the size to be? What template do you want to use? So this media player is completely template. You can slap in brand new templates very easily, and you can all do this within a web interface. You don't have to drag and drop files. You don't have to go out and download any libraries. You literally go install the module, and you are off and running.
Oh, that's great, and I imagine a lot of that's to do with the licensing of the components that you're using, because a lot of the times I've found when I have to go and download a library or something, it will be because the person who's made the module doesn't have the license to distribute the library that we need.
That was a big challenge that I had, especially when I first started writing this. Is there really wasn't much GPL media player solutions out there. And so I actually had that problem. Well, I actually have a skill of I write media players. In fact, before I wrote the OSM player, I wrote the Dash media player, which is a completely flash video player. And so I was like, I'm just going to build one myself and GPL it, and that way I can include it in my module. And not only that, but I also built the JavaScript wrappers around like the YouTube integration, around Vimeo integration, and all of this is object oriented. So you can actually go to our source code, and you can be able to understand and decipher what each component does, and pretty easily. And so yeah, I wrote all of it, and because I wrote all of it, and because I GPL'd all of it, I had control to bring it into whatever projects I wanted. So I really like having that freedom. So I kind of took on the initiative to just do it and get it all wrapped up into one really easy module to use.
That is really cool, and since I've brought up the kind of license and so on, I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent, but I noticed you're under GPL v3, and I was just curious what made you pick that and what you like about GPL v3.
To be honest with you, I feel that it's more updated. I watched the video. Of course, you can look if you go to MediaFront.org. There's a Richard Stallman where he talks about version 3. I watched that video, and he highly recommended everyone update. And I read through the license, and it seemed to appeal to me. I wanted a very liberal license. I didn't want anybody to feel constrained about using this in any type of scenario. You can distribute it. You can use it in whatever situation that you wanted. And I feel like GPL3 really kind of fit the bill for that.
Oh, that's really cool. And the reason I asked that is because it has been a contentious issue among some developers of different things, whether to move from V2 to V3. And yeah, I won't get too much into the licensing stuff because that'll probably send everyone to sleep. So yeah, getting back to the kind of the Drupal side of things, obviously I have a massive interest in Drupal. So you mentioned that you were involved in Drupal for about 5 years or so. So do you interact a lot with the core Drupal developers and all those kind of people?
Yeah, I mean, I actually say that I will, and that's actually kind of, the next thing I kind of really want to talk about is, just where Drupal is going when it comes to HTML5 integration and multimedia. It's really amazing what's going on in the community right now, and I have been involved in some of the core initiatives. In fact, I'm involved in the, I'm involved in the HTML5 video and audio initiative to actually implement HTML5 video and audio into Drupal core, which I think is going to be just a wonderful thing, that you'd be able to download Drupal. You'll be able to upload videos directly without even having to download anything. You can serve videos to your audience. Of course, you'll still need MediaFront to provide all the playlist support and all the bells and whistles. I think what I'm working on with implementing within Drupal core is a very bare bones media player, very minimalistic type solution, so that users can display their videos if they really want to within Drupal. But yeah, I'm actually involved. I go to the Drupal conferences, every year that are around, which I highly recommend. If you guys are Drupal guys, I highly recommend going to those conferences. They are amazing. So
yeah, there was one in, I think, was it Sweden or somewhere earlier in the year? Not Sweden. It was definitely Scandinavia somewhere. I don't want to upset anyone by getting that wrong.
The next one's in London, and I think it's coming up really soon. I'm not sure what the days are for the London one, but I know that's the next one, and then next year is going to be Denver. So hopefully I can see you guys there.
Yeah, sounds good. So on the HTML5 front then, as you mentioned, a lot of people who listen to this show or watch this show will probably have had some experience of HTML5. Do you think there was a lot of wrangling? You mentioned about the various different video formats that people will use and so on. During the HTML5 process, there was a lot of kind of back and forth between different parties about which codec to use, and in the end they didn't specify a default codec for HTML5. Does that present more problems to you? Would it be easier if there was a default codec?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I feel like we're actually back to square one, back whenever I first started developing websites. And way back then, this was even before Flash was ubiquitous. If you wanted to display video in your website, even way back when, you literally had to pick a browser and say, you know what, I'm gonna upload MOV because I want most of my players. I think most of my users are going to have QuickTime, and then so really you almost had to make a decision based on the browser what media you're going to deliver. And so I really kind of feel like we're in that situation again, and it really is unfortunate because the video and audio tags, as far as the specification is concerned, are very well defined. I feel like the W3C committee has actually done a wonderful job laying out specifications, but because they left the codec as an open, browsers can implement it however they want, we're actually back to the very, very original problem, which is inconsistency. It is a standardized process, but it's implemented extremely inconsistent. And because of that inconsistencies, we have to have these third-party plugins. That will actually wrap up those inconsistencies and make the life easier for developers trying to build websites. So yeah, I consider it a big problem.
Yeah, I mean, I got to say that I encode or transcode my video into several formats. I mean, obviously I do H264, but then I do a different version for people that want to run like an XVID compatible or play it on their iPod or iPad. And I do an OGG version, of course, just to keep it all kind of, in the open. So it definitely is a problem, but at the same time, isn't there also an issue where as soon as you make a choice, let's say H264 in this case, or whatever, pick your favorite one, or OGG. Firefox chose OGG first, right?
Yeah.
So let's pick OGG. So everyone, okay, we're going to pick OGG. That's going to be it. If you want to run HTML5 video, it's OGG. And then this new player comes along, or new codec comes along rather, that's leaps and bounds better, but then you've pigeonholed yourself into this
single
codec. I mean, isn't that an issue?
Well, I think it's an issue if the codec is closed source. I think if the codec is open source, then it's not an issue at all. Like take for example Google's WebM. They've completely opened it up. It's completely open. It's royalty free, and it's not a problem because the codec is open. So if you're actually going to want to deliver an open source solution, why not make the things that depend on it open as well? Because if it was open, then you would have a legion of developers making that codec better and better and better. And especially if it was the standardized HTML codec, then you would have literally an army of developers making it better daily. And so let's say this new codec did crop up that was better than the web standard. It would be a matter of no time before the army of developers got onto the web standard codec just to make it up to par. So, in my opinion, is that the standard should state a standardized codec, and my personal favorite is WebM from Google, just because I feel like it is up to par right now with H.264. I mean, it's a little bit less, but it's up to par with it. And it's completely open, and I applaud Google for doing what they did with the WebM project. So
right. Well, that's the answer of the day for me right there, because I mean it's what we always talk about, right? As an open source evangelist, is that this is the reason you choose open source.
Right. I mean, yeah.
So you took the bait perfectly. I couldn't have scripted it any better than that. That's great. Another question I had is, what about since you do a lot of work with HTML5 and standards, keep up with the standards and so forth? I've had lots of discussions with people that are developing websites and things where they want to do web conferencing, and so not just streaming but live streaming. In the way that you stream and some of the other folks do. And what they've said is that right now there's not really a good way to do that with HTML5. Is that the case? Do you concur with that? And what's happening maybe to solve that? Because I think live video is going to become even more ubiquitous over the next few years. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Well, I wish I could talk in depth about that, but unfortunately, that is a topic that I myself am not completely familiar with. But I do agree with you that as far as when it comes to streaming video, that there is not a common place to do it. Typically, whenever I implement streaming video, I always fall to the third party providers that do it. And that's usually typically the approach that I've taken. So I haven't investigated at this moment, open source or open initiatives to provide open streaming capabilities.
Okay.
So.
Well, I mean, any plans to do that? I mean, is the framework that exists with the player sufficient to allow for that in the future? Because I can see where the Drupal guys would be interested in that as well. I mean, that's one of the areas where, as we talk about more and more media going onto Drupal sites, I mean, that's got to be one of the areas where people are really interested in getting live streaming sites set up.
Right, and actually the answer to that is yes, and the reason why it is capable of doing that is just because all I am doing is I am implementing or I'm interacting with the video objects that are provided by browsers, and most of those browsers actually provide those video objects or those audio objects with streaming capabilities. And so there are actually flags within the video object that you can say, hey, I want this to be a streaming video. Or you can actually provide an RTMP stream of a video, and that'll actually stream it into the media player. So from that aspect, yes, the technology currently exists to do it. It's just the delivery mechanism as for how do you get that stream, how do you actually set up the stream, and how do you actually deliver it to the player is something that I have not necessarily done myself. I typically use a third party. But as far as getting that stream active within the player, yeah, definitely the technology is there to do it.
Okay, so what is coming up next then in terms of development? What's the next thing that you're working on?
Well, what I'm currently working on is primarily the HTML5 initiative within the Drupal content management system, which is actually to finally get standard video and audio support within Drupal core. So the Drupal 8. Core. So whenever the Drupal 8 releases, I'm hoping to have basically the bare bones of what a user would need to have a media delivery system and even a fallback set in place. So to have like a very minimalistic Flash widget that you can slap in for people that don't have that support. So that's currently my initiative. I would actually say beyond that, I would say there is a lot of room to have distributions of like these So Drupal has this concept of creating these distributions where people could literally go and download a distribution, and it has built in, everything is wrapped up for them, ready to go. They install it, and they suddenly have a web delivery platform. So I feel personally that the distribution industry within Drupal is actually going to be extremely powerful, especially whenever implementing these media solutions like MediaFront, because then instead of actually having to install the modules, set up your views, get everything configured just the way you want it, all you would literally have to do is go and download a MediaFront distribution of Drupal, and you would set that up on your server, and you just walk through the installation process, and you are ready to rock and roll by delivering web video on your website.
Right.
And you won't even have to think about it. So I feel like those are the next steps that I want to take with this project. I just have to find the time to do it.
Right. Yeah. So how can people, first of all, I mean, we already mentioned the website, but is MediaFront.org the best way for people to find out what's going on?
I think so MediaFront.org is a great place to go. We are the company that's behind this, Aletheia Inc. is a company that I'm involved with, and we actually provide support for this media player. So if you want custom solutions, you can go to aletheia-inc.com. And so it is in our future to actually kind of move some of this over to our Aletheia Inc. website, just to try and make this a little bit more maintainable. So as of right now, MediaFront.org is the place to go to find out about the project. But I would also highly recommend that if people are starting from ground zero and they want to implement the solution the right way, to go and get Drupal, and to go to the Drupal project page, which is drupal.org/project/MediaFront. And this is actually the front end implementation within the Drupal platform. So there's really two places that you can go to really get started, and I feel like those two are really great places. Or if you're a code geek and you just want to like read some code or maybe even fork it, you can go to our GitHub profile, which is github.com/MediaFront, and you'll see all the code that we're writing to try and get all of this implementation put in place.
And also,
I noticed on your
go ahead, Dan.
I noticed on your website, Travis, that there's a banner there saying "Please get involved," and you're looking for people to help out with the project. So what kind of thing would they need to know, or to get involved? Do you need to be a hardcore kind of programmer, or are there other things that you need as well?
Well, I think I'm a big advocate for documentation. I feel like right now the biggest thing that we're lacking is really good documentation on how to implement certain use cases. The thing with video is that everybody who wants to implement video has a different vision in their head on how they want to implement it. So there are so many different use cases that we have to handle, and one thing that I've noticed about this MediaFront project that is a stumbling block for people wanting to get started is the documentation is not quite there. It's really hard for people to kind of get up to speed to get what they want out of this solution. Another thing is code, and one thing that I feel like MediaFront could really use help with is improving the standalone player, improving the OSM player from a standalone perspective. In IRC, there's a lot of people say, "Hey, I just want to plop this media player on my HTML website. How do I do that?" Well, right now, I pretty much tell people use another player because this player is going to give you a lot of headache. But I would like to fix that. I want to, and the way to fix that is to have the JavaScript dynamically build the template based off of standardized video tags. So this is what other JavaScript players are doing right now, and it's something that MediaFront doesn't do. So there's actually a lot of work that needs to be done on the standalone perspective. And if anybody out there wants to get involved with that, all you have to do is simply fork the project, the OSM player project, on our GitHub account and start playing with it and try and improve it. And then you can do a pull request, and I will definitely take a look at it. And that's a way that you can definitely get involved. And any help would be appreciated, because I'm currently consumed trying to get all the pieces in place right now.
Yeah, that's really cool, and I know it's something that a lot of open source projects need, is people to get involved and so on. So especially with documentation, because we all like playing with code, but somehow it's not as cool to write documentation, but it's really important.
Yeah,
so,
well, I mean, it's kind of funny because I wrote this to try and appeal to to the people that aren't coders, that they want to build this solution without writing code. And, those people, they need documentation. And as a programmer myself, I always tell myself, well, the code is the documentation, so I have no problem getting a nose in code to figure out what this piece does. But that's like 0.1% of the people out there using this. So yeah, documentation, I feel, is a major place that we need to improve this project.
That's cool. So I have to ask the kind of I don't know how else to put it, but the kind of the dirty question, which is, do you have any plans to make some kind of money out of this, or how are you going to support it financially and so on in the future?
Well, right
Maybe
now,
support services. Or something?
Yeah. Well, right now, the only money that's made off this project is just to support the project, and and how we make money. So Aletheia, like I said, Aletheia Inc. is the company behind it, and I'm involved with that company. And how we make money is customizations. People, so we provide a base template, we provide a base installation. But most people, whenever they implement multimedia, they're going to want to try and customize it. They're going to want to try and tweak it. They're going to want a custom template that fits their website. And so that service is actually a really good thing that we can offer. Is hey, here's the code for free. I mean, this is the open source model, right? Here's the code that you're free to change it and modify it to your will. But if you need help, come to us. And so that's kind of the same model that we have. But currently, as of right now, that money is strictly it goes right back into the project to provide hosting and to also provide project management and that type of stuff on the projects that people want that customization done. So.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, it's very very altruistic of you, I should say, to do that. I think it's great, and I cannot wait, like I said, to get this cooking here. I've got to upgrade. I'll make an admission. I know this is horrible, but I'm still running Drupal 5.
Oh, okay. You can't use MediaFront.
So I know the first thing I've got to do is go back and get the site upgraded.
Yeah.
The problem is I run a custom theme. And so every time you update to a new version of Drupal, it throws your theme off completely. So
you should just declare website bankruptcy.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to have to. I think I'm just going to go with a new theme, and just go with that because it's too hard to customize those themes.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I wanted to ask you a not so altruistic question. So I don't know if you're ready for this, but I need to ask you this. And I hope it doesn't embarrass you at all.
Okay.
So here's the question. Emacs or VI?
Oh, VI. VI, right. Definitely.
Good.
Oh, yeah. And that's actually funny because here at All Players, that's a question we ask in interviews almost all the time, what Emacs or VI. And 90% of the time we get VIs, but every now and then we'll get a brave soul that says Emacs.
Well, we get a lot of coders, developers on this show, and so a lot of them do actually prefer Emacs. But most people depend. And I think it also. I hope this doesn't offend anybody, but it depends a little bit on your age. Depending on when you started with Linux and open source, the younger you are, the probably the more likely you are to choose VI. Not all the time. It's not a rule, but a lot of time.
Yeah,
so
I'm a VI guy.
Yeah. Good. Well, I think that's going to have to wrap it up because we're just about out of time. But okay. I know that you also have besides media, working with media, you also have another unusual talent. So we wanted to actually, for those that are watching the stream or watching the video version of this, you'll be able to see his unusual talent here as we wrap up. Anything we should know about? So you're the one on the left. Anything we should know before we play this video?
Well, yeah. So this is actually how I got started in web development. Actually, is I taught tap classes, and I was a professional dancer, and I wanted to bring videos and basically teach classes online, and so that's what got me started. And so I'm an engineer by training, but I've always had this passion for entertaining. So that's just something that I've always done. So yeah.
Well, I think it's awesome. Well, hey, I'm going to say thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Really, really interesting project. I know that Dan and I could go on for hours with you about this. So I'm sure you'll get a lot of follow-up either from us or from the folks that are watching. So
I appreciate it.
Yeah, really glad we could have you on. And let's finish it up with a little bit of dance. Ha ha ha. Very coordinated moves, I must say. Where is this, Travis? Where were you guys doing this? Oh, did we lose Travis?
Oh, I think we've lost him.
I think we lost him. I was just,
I was just going to say, for the benefit of anyone listening to the audio cast, that we were just watching a video of Travis dancing to the Blues Brothers music, as you saw there. Very cool. He's got some good moves there.
Yeah, where was that, Travis? Where did you guys do that?
Oh, that was years ago. I don't know if I could do it now. I was in Oklahoma. I actually grew up in Oklahoma.
Oh, okay.
So it was a dance competition there in Oklahoma. I am proud to say, though, we did win that competition.
Well, you should have. That was really, really good. I mean, you guys must have worked on that for a long time. So
yeah.
Don't stop. Don't stop doing that, man. That is awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Hey, we'll talk to you later.
All right. Thanks a bunch.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
All right. So, Dan, what do you think?
Yeah, really interesting project. I feel a bit stupid, really, because I've been doing Drupal development for about 4 years, and I've never actually used MediaFront, so hopefully I've not shown myself up too much there. Sounds really cool. I like the idea that you can not only use HTML5, but also give out a Flash version if you need it, because much as we all may not enjoy Flash, there are still platforms where you're going to need that, so that's really cool.
Right, exactly. And you know, I feel the same way. I really didn't know much, and that's always the case, right? I mean, it seems like not every guest, but a lot of the guests we have, it's like, oh, I didn't even know that project was out there. I can't believe it. You know, especially being Drupal users and aficionados as you are. I wish I feel a little embarrassed that we didn't know about this, but it's great. It's such a great project, and especially, you know, making it open source and having an alternative to Flash, I think is really, really cool. So really glad we could get Travis on, and I think everyone should follow up on that. So upcoming as far as events on the show, I don't know if I think you're up to date more on that actually than I am, Dan. Do you know what's coming up?
Yeah, a little bit. So I'm opening our spreadsheet where we have all the things. So if you want to find out who's coming up on the show, you can go to twit.tv/floss, and on there is a link to the Google spreadsheet that we have where we list all the people who are coming on. So if you want to find out more about that, you certainly can do. I'm just frantically scrolling through to make sure I've got the right one. Okay, so next week I think Randall's going to record something from Faisal, where he's going in Brazil, which is a big open source conference down there. A few thousand people, I believe, so that's going to be cool. Then the week after, on July the 13th, we've got Neil Gomper, who's coming in from, let me see if I can say this right, Enano CMS, I think that is, which is another open source web CMS, content management system. There seems to be a lot of them out there, but yeah, it's very cool, and we want to hear more about that. Then we've got lots of stuff coming up in, Randall's been busy booking Q3, I think it is, and after that, following week, we've got Task Warrior, which I have to confess I don't know a hell of a lot about, but it sounds really, really cool. It's got a cool name anyway, Task Warrior. So we got Paul Beckingham, Federico Hernandez coming in from that. And then following that, there will be on July the 27th, a live show from OSCON, which is in Portland this year, I believe. So are you going to OSCON, Aaron?
I am not going to OSCON. It's. I wish I could. It is closer to me, at least, than when I lived on the East Coast, but not going to be up there. But I know Randall will be up there. I think Simon Phipps will be there as well. So they may have some things in store for OSCON, maybe if not a live broadcast, maybe they will do some interviews and things at OSCON, and we'll be able to play that here on Floss Weekly.
Definitely. And if you want to get any projects onto the show, you have something interesting, as Randall always says, best thing to do is to email him. His address is merlin@stonehenge.com. And if you can get the project leader to email him, that's the best way to do it. And that goes right to the top of the list. And there's a few slots left here and there. So if there's a favorite project of yours that you think we need to talk about, then get in touch and let us know.
Right, right. So just to wrap it up here, if you want to follow, anything that I'm doing, you can always go to thesourceshow.org. That's my other very irregular podcast. As I mentioned, I do have a podcast coming up. It's almost done. It's literally like 99% done. I'll be releasing that this week, and that goes back to Maker Faire, where I did some interviews, some behind-the-scenes stuff at Maker Faire. So you probably want to take a look at that. You can also go to, Twitter or Facebook, or just go to AaronNewcomb.com. Aaron Newcomb, all one word. You'll be able to follow me. Dan, where can people find out more about what's going on in your neck of the woods?
Yeah, the best place to go is danlynch.org. That's Lynch for Lynch, if anyone doesn't know how to spell it, .org. And you can find links to Linux Outlaws and all the other various things that I do. I have to confess, we don't do video, so it's a lot easier for us to produce shows. I think it's doing the video adds a lot of stuff, a lot of work to it. So we do audio cast, but we talk about Linux and open source and all that kind of stuff. So you can find all about that there, and you'll find my Twitter account, and it's Method Dan. It's like the two words stuck together, Method and Dan. And yeah, you can find me on there, Identica, all over the place.
All right, great. And it's an excellent podcast, by the way. Everybody should check it out. So I think that'll do it. That'll wrap it up for this week. Until next time, thanks for watching FLOSS Weekly.